So my name is Chanmi Lee. I go by Chan. And yeah, let me introduce myself a little bit. So this is my 5th year at OU, and this is my 6th year in the United States. So I'm graduating next May with degree in Bachelor of Science in GIS, which is Geographic Information System, which is like mapping, Google Maps and Google Earth, that kind of thing. This is overview of my presentation. I'm going to talk about geography, economic status of South Korea, Korean alphabet, which we call Hangul, and Korean history. Commonly known as South Korea, the official name is Republic of Korea. And we call it Hanguk or 대한민국. And this is our flag. This means like purity, harmony, that kind of thing. Yin and yang, that harmony. So at OU, there are about 100 students. So it's kind of good amount of Korean students, I heard. There are about 50 undergraduate students. And as you can see over there, we have KSA T-shirt. There is an organization of Korean students called Korean Student Association. And they advertise Korean culture by hosting a Korean night every spring. So South Korean geography. So it's between China and Japan. So because of its location, it has been having geopolitical interactions with China and Japan over a lot of years, like thousands of years. So I will talk about it later a little bit. And this is the comparison between Oklahoma and South Korea. So South Korea is a little bit, it's smaller than Oklahoma. But we have 50 million population. And among 50 million population, in Seoul, 10 million lives in Seoul. So 20% of South Korean populations lives in Seoul. And we have 8 provinces, as you can see. And Seoul is not a part of any province. So it's a special city, just like Washington, D.C. Yes. And 70% of Korean territory is mountainous area. So there are not many flat areas. So this part is Baekdu mountain range. So it's it's a very high elevated area. Yeah. So the climate is very different from here and there. So they get a lot of rains here, but not much here. Yeah. And the fish they collect from this area and that area is different as well because of that kind of sea current that's coming from Russia, but it's not coming from Russia, it's coming from downside. So it's very different. And we get a lot of monsoons and a lot of sand winds from China. So, and we have rainy season in summer. We get a lot of rains and we have floods almost every summer. So this is Seoul, the capital. And this is the Han River. So it's like the mainstream river that's kind of symbolizing Seoul. And this is Gangnam, which means south of Han River. And this is Gangbuk, means north of Han River. And if you know any Korean singer, Psy, Gangnam means this region. And Gangnam Station is like near here. So it specifically like means Gangnam area. And this is North Korea. And this is Pyongyang. And this is Kaesong right here. We have industrial district in Kaesong. So South Korean companies are there and North Korean people work there. And I want to talk a little bit about economic status of South Korea. And I would like to say it's one of the world's fastest growing economies since the Korean War, which happened in 1950s. The GDP per capita is over $30,000. This figure is the same as that of Israel. Yeah, and it's a little bit lower than European Union and France. And nationwide, Korea ranks 15 in GDP, and we are a member of G20 and sixth largest exporter. Yes. And you might know, Samsung, Hyundai, Kia, and LG. Most people think that they are Japanese, but they are actually Koreans. They don't really say it. They don't advocate they are Koreans, but they are. Yes. So I want to talk about Hangul. We say Hangul. Hangul. Sorry. This person, King Sejong, he created this alphabet system. Before that, we were using Chinese characters, which you know, they are kind of complicated to use. So only aristocrats, only male could use them. And illiteracy rate was really, really high. Like women and normal people, they couldn't use any language. They could speak, but they couldn't read or write. But he had mercy on us, so he created the system. So he's very admired in Korea. We call him King Sejong the Great. I guess that's the reason why we call him that way. So it's very easy to learn because it's just alphabetic system. You don't have to memorize every character like Chinese character. So, but I want to point out that Korean language structure is a little bit different from English. So if I say I go to school, in English I say subject, verb, object, right? But in Korean, you have to say subject, object, and then verb. So I school go. The verb comes at the end. So it might be useful for students who are going to South Korea for study abroad. So Hangul is purely phonetic, and it depicts the shapes of vocal organs when we actually say it. So we have 14 consonants and 10 vowels. I want to read it just out loud so you can get the feel of it. 기역, 니은, 디귿, 리을, 미음, 비읍, 시옷, 이응, 지읒, 치읓, 키읔, 티읕, 피읍, 히읗. 아, 야, 여, 오, 요, 우유, 으이. So this one is O. But adding one more that stick, it becomes yo. So it's a little bit different. 오, 요, 아, 야. Yeah, that's the difference between these sticks. So these are our names. This one is his name, and this one is her name, and this one is mine. So I want to read it for you so you can practice a little bit. Kim In-chan. Do you want to follow? Kim In-chan. In Korean, the surname comes first and followed by first name. And Kim and Lee, we don't have Park here, but those surnames are most popular surnames. So you might have noticed already. So you, 설, 아. You, 설, 아. Thank you. Yes. 이, 찬미. 이, 찬미. You're getting better. Okay. So these are common honorifics. C, we use, it's for general use. So 찬미 씨. That means if we met first time, I would call her 설아 씨, and she would call me 찬미 씨. But this 선생님, it's for someone who is a lot older than I am, but showing more respect. So if that person is a professor or actual teacher, I'd say 선생님 actually means teacher. And yang and 군, these are not commonly used, but if a professor in college referring to a student, they might use yang for female and 군 for male. And these are 저기요. We don't really say excuse me, kind of. But when you are referring to someone, but you don't know their name, but you're saying, "Oh, 저기요, 저기요," like that. So they might know that you're calling. And 님 is showing more respect, but you don't know their name. So if you go to hospital, they might call you by 이찬미님, and they are referring you. Yeah. And so in Korean, we don't have sir or ma'am, but we show that with having formal and informal way of saying our phrases. So 아빠, daddy, 아버지, father. 엄마, mommy, 어머니, mother, like this. And 안녕. 안녕 is a common phrase because it's hi, but it becomes longer when we are saying in 안녕하세요, informal way. So we will practice a little bit, if you're okay. So 안녕, 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 and formal 안녕하세요, 안녕하세요. So we would usually do 안녕하세요 like this. And bye is more complicated. Yes, yes. If we are saying informal way, it would be just 안녕, same. But if you're showing respect, it depends on whether you're staying or you are the person leaving. So I will just say it, you don't have to follow me. 안녕히 가세요 means someone is leaving, so I'm saying 안녕히 가세요. But if I am leaving, I will say 안녕히 계세요. Yes, it's different. This is thank you and sorry. Do you want to try? 고마워, 고마워. 고마워. We don't say you're welcome, kind of. Yes, that's why I didn't include here. And 미안해, 미안해. We're trying. 고마워. This is my name is okay, it's hard. 제 이름은 땡땡땡 blah 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 입니다. So I will say 제 이름은 이찬미입니다. 제 means I. 이름은 means name is. And then there goes my name. 입니다 shows it's a verb. So it ends the sentence. So subject, object, and then verb. 제 이름은 이찬미입니다. Anybody would like to try? I will help.
I'll try it. 제 이름은 Caroline입니다. Wow.
Perfect. 좋아. 좋아 means good. 좋아. Oh! And 여보세요 is like when you're calling someone, we don't say hello. 여보세요, 여보세요. Yeah, we call that. And
What does that mean literally if it's not hello?
it doesn't mean anything. And 만나서 반갑습니다. 만나서 means meeting you. 반갑습니다 means I'm kind of happy, I'm glad. So 만나서 반갑습니다. Yes, 만나서 반갑습니다. 만나서 반갑습니다. Yes, thank you. So as I showed you, we always do this. Bowing down just no 90 degrees. That's for kind of gangsters. 30 or 45 degrees. And this is very traditional way of showing our respect to our mothers and fathers and grandfathers. The reason I am having this one here is that because yesterday was our Korean holiday, which is like Moon Festival, Harvest Festival. It's called Chuseok. Yeah, I know that a lot of people think it's Chinese Moon Festival, but it's for Asian countries which follow lunar calendar. So it's almost the same. Like we have that Moon Festival as well. Yeah, it's the same day, August 15th on the lunar calendar. So we go to visit our grandparents, and we have like ancestral ceremonial rituals. And for Chuseok, we eat special food called songpyeon. This is songpyeon. It's like rice cake, and we make it at home. That's kind of tradition. that we do for Chuseok. And for New Year's, we eat tteokguk. This is tteokguk. We slice this rice cake and make it a stew, like this. And during Chuseok and New Year, we play games like this. Yeah, I just wanted to show you. So I want to talk about Korean history. We have 5,000 years of history. Yes, it goes back all the way to BC, 2,333. Yes, it starts with a country, Gojoseon. Yes, and it becomes 3 countries, then 2 countries, it becomes 1 country, and then, yes, it goes on and on to here. I will go over one by one. So this is how the country was divided. It went all the way to China back then. And then it divided up into 2 countries, and then Shilla, it unified this Korean country that looks like this. And Korea, and then it became Joseon. Joseon is important because our Hangul was created from this dynasty. And Confucianism, before then, the Buddhism was our national religion. So everybody had to believe Buddhism, but Confucianism became promoted, and still it remains in our tradition. The Chuseok, that having ritual for ancestor, it comes from Confucianism. Yes, and a lot of our thinking system is based upon Confucianism. So it's very important to understand Korean students if you know Confucianism. Yes, so from 1910 to 1945, we were under Japanese rule. Yes, so I want to talk about it briefly, because it connects to Korean War. So Japanese wanted to have a trade with South Korea because they became very publicly known by Meiji Yusin. And so they had a treaty with South Korea. And then after that, US came, Russia came, and a lot of European countries came. And Japanese had a war with China in 1894, and Russia with 1904. And Japan won those 2 wars. And then after Japanese won those wars, Japanese could rule Korea because it won the wars, kind of. So they took our sovereignty in 1910. So South Korea became, all Korea Peninsula became the part of Japan. So in 1930s, we couldn't use Korean names. We had to use Japanese names. They forced us to use Japanese as schools. We couldn't learn any Korean. And a lot of Koreans were enlisted, so they had to make weapons, that kind of things for Japanese, so they can fight in World War II. And a lot of Korean girls were enlisted as well as prostitutes. So we are still in disputes, getting a policy from them, so it's kind of a very political issue. So we fought for our freedom. This is March 1st movement. It was a very national movement in Korea, but people got imprisoned because of this. And eventually we got our freedom in 1945. But so they retreated, Japanese retreated, but US remained in South Korea, and Russia, Soviet Union, yes, I should rephrase that. Soviet Union remained in North Korea. And then United Nations, they came in, they intervened, so they wanted to have one election for Korean Peninsula. But at that time, Kim Il-sung was in North Korea, so Soviet Union refused to have that election. So South Korea, we had our own election in 1948, and North Korean, they had their own election. I think it was not 1948. 1948 and 1949 in North Korea. So that's when our first president, Lee Seung-man, was elected as our president, and Kim Il-sung became their leader of Democratic Peoples of Korea. And then American troops, they left Korea because the war ended. But however, in 1950, North Korea actually invaded South Korea after the American troops were all gone. So yes, there are refugees coming to South Korea like this. Because they invaded in June, a lot of people started moving to South Korea in October. And I want to talk a little bit about my family, if it's okay. My mother's family, they are from North Korea. So the war ended in 1953, and that's when my mom was born. So my two aunts, and my uncle, they were born in North Korea. So my oldest aunt, she was 10, my uncle was 7, and my aunt was 4. And my grandfather, he came to South Korea separate. So those 3 of them and my grandmother, they came to South Korea in June 1950. So I heard that my aunt, who was 10, she had a lot of things to carry on her head. I don't have it here, but she had to carry, and she had to hold my uncle's hand coming to South Korea. So I heard that there were a lot of war orphans, because if you let go of the hand, you're never going to find him again. And my aunt told me that my grandmother carried something like this, and it was very lumpy on the road because there were a lot of dead bodies on the road. Yeah, that's what I heard. My aunt, who was 4, she's still alive. Yeah, she's in her mid-60s. And yeah, there are a lot of people who still remember the war because it's kind of recent for Koreans. Yes. So that's the refugee camp. And I want to talk about Incheon landing because it was done by American troops. So they are Americans. Oh, yes. It was led by General MacArthur. He's very famous in Korea because of this. So I don't have the map, but do you know Incheon Airport? That's where he landed. So October 1950, he didn't attack. He landed in Incheon because the situation was like North Korean troops, they came all the way down to south. So we need some kind of help to get them back up. So MacArthur came in the middle. And then, so North Korean troops, they were stuck in the middle. And then from that time, we pushed back. So that's why he's so famous and popular. And this is our first president, Lee Seung-man. Yes. He could speak English because he came to United States to study like us. Yeah. So that's the war orphans. And you can see U.S. Marine Memorial Orphanage. Yes, there were a lot of war orphans like this. Yeah, they are American troops. So I heard that from United Nations, 16 countries came to help us, including U.S. and other Western powers. And that's when the war ended. And until 1980s, South Korea was devastated. It was really poor country. When the war ended, South Korea was the second poorest country in the world. And we need a lot of help because of this kind of, war orphans. And this is Pastor Swanson. He created Compassion International to help South Koreans. So this is Korean custom, traditional custom that aristocrat males wear. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. And the reason I'm having this is that they ended helping us in 1980s, not because they didn't want to help us anymore, but because we didn't help we didn't need help anymore. But in 1990s, we became the benefactor. We started helping other countries. So that's a very big transition. And I heard that there are not many countries who became a benefactor from a beneficiary countries. So in modern Korea, we hosted Seoul 1988 Summer Olympics. I was not born that time. I don't know much about it, but yes, it was a very big event, international, and I remember this. Yes, th- these are people. These are not kind of sticks. These are all people, and this is our city hall in Seoul, and these people are gathered here just to watch the soccer game. Yeah, because it was a very big thing in Korea. Yes. Yes, we went to the semi-final, and then yeah, we won the fourth. Yes. And then we are hosting another Olympic game in 2018 in Pyeongchang. So these are some things we are planning. And this one is actually characters, Korean characters, piut and chiut. The reason is piut is Pyeong and chiut is Chang. So it comes from Korean characters. The emblem comes from Korean characters. And I want to talk about like Korean, yeah, famous figures. So this is United States Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. So he's famous. And Yoona Kim is definitely famous because yeah, she won the gold medal with figure skating. And figure skating was not that popular in Korea before she came in. But because of her, it became really famous and popular, and a lot of people are interested in it. And after she won the gold Olympic, she started like advertising, promoting Korea. She's very good at it, and she is one of the people who helped Korea to get Pyeongchang as next Olympic location. And Psy, you see Ban Ki-moon, he's dancing with Psy. Yeah, this is Madonna, as you can see. Yeah, he's kind of famous, not even in Korea, but in the US, I guess a little bit. So this is modern Korea. So it's very different from what you have seen during the Korean War. So this is Gwanghwamun. This is like traditional way of building our structures. So this is palace. So this is the door. In Seoul, in Joseon Dynasty, I showed you, we had 4 doors: south, north, west, and east. And this is one of those doors. And this is, do you recognize him? The King Sejong. Yeah, he's right there because he's very admired. And this is King Lee Sun-shin, like he defeated Japanese during the war in Joseon Dynasty. So this is the Han River, and this is like South Korea, Seoul, in nighttime. So it has been developing a lot during our last few decades. Yes, this is Gangnam Station. Yeah. And you might be curious about North and South relationship back from we divided. So we have 이산 가족 상봉, which is like divided families getting together. So these people are from North, and these people are from South, but they meet each other by they register like I want to find my family in North, and if that match comes actually true, they can go to North Korea to meet their family. Yeah, like this. And Kim Dae-jung, he's deceased, but he had a very good relationship with Kim Jong-il, and he actually won the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, because of this relationship with Kim Jong-il. However, but we are still having threat and dispute with North Korea. So in 2010, they attacked Yeonpyeong-do, which is right here. And there was an island that South Koreans were living, actually. So, and in 2010, again, they attacked Cheonanham. That's a Korean Navy vessel. And 46 sailors were dead because of that attack. So, yeah, and they are still doing nuclear weapon experiment. So we are still in the process of getting united and being merged, but we have a lot of steps to walk through. And this is Panmunjom. These are South Korean soldiers, and these are North Korean soldiers. So this border right here, if you just step across, this is North Korea, and this is South Korea. This is that symbol. So these houses, when North Korean and South Korean government officials are meeting, they meet here because it's kind of neutral region. So they meet here, but you cannot go across there. Yes. If you see someone going across there, they have every right to shoot you. Yes. So our first female president, Park Geun-hye, she was elected last year. Yes, last year. And she's our first female president, so it means a lot to us. And this is at her inauguration ceremony. Yes. Yes. Do you recognize this logo? This was the logo that I showed you. We have Korean brands now because we are helping other people. This means the same thing, that was compassion with Jesus, and this means the same, compassion with the love of Jesus, love of the Lord. So as you can see, we are helping other people. Yes. Thank you.